All right. Well, welcome everybody. I think we're going to go ahead and get going. I know we had one parent saying, I'm worried about my child screaming in the background, and you're on a webinar tonight, so we can't hear you, so you can scream away. My name is Todd Bloomquist. I'm the Director of School Improvement here for the Grants Pass School District. I have on the line here tonight Kristen Hosfeld, who is our Communication Specialist, Tricia Evans, who is our Director of Secondary Education and Curriculum, and Susan Zatola, our Director for Elementary Education and Curriculum. We are really glad that you're here tonight. We are spinning up this new concept, which may not be that new, but we're going to try real hard to be as flexible as we possibly can be. So what we've got for you tonight are just a few slides, try to grab some of the big key concepts to get them out there for you all. And then we'll go through what we have for our frequently asked questions so far, but we want to hear from you tonight as well. What are your questions? And then I think the big one is, so how do I register for this school? So we'll get through all that tonight and then give lots of space around for you all to have questions. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here real quick. And hopefully you can see all that, and my colleagues, you'll let me know if that's working or not. I think it is. And I am recording this tonight just so you all are aware of that, so that we can post this out there for other families who could not be here tonight. So we'll keep that posted on our website. So one of the first things we want to do is just talk about some of our dreams and our hopes and our vision for this concept. And so, obviously we want a place, and I think you do too, where every student is successful. And we're looking for the ways and tools and the methodology that every student is prepared for whatever's coming next. And we want them to be well prepared for this world. And then of course, this is us on our best day. How can we help all of our students be their best self? And we know that the brick and mortar schools, they don't always work for everybody. They work for most of us, but not for everybody. And so we're trying to find a new way to do that. So in our hopes that our learning would be centered around the student. And not that it isn't now necessarily, but that this concept is really around starting with the student. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a little bit. That the environment would be a better match for students with particular needs. Again, a regular traditional classroom works for a lot of children, but it doesn't work for everybody. And we feel strongly, particularly given all of the pandemic stuff that's been going on, that we create an environment that works for those who are really interested in a different kind of learning. We are excited about being more flexible. And I think schools have probably been known for being pretty rigid. This is how we do school. And what we're thinking about is, how can we do school just a little bit differently that attends to what our students' needs are? And then getting into our vision, that we believe that this is a long-term process, and that we are going to create an ongoing, flexible learning space. We're going to learn from each other this first year out, and into year two, we're going to learn from our families, from our kids, from the parents. We are going to be building these partnerships with you as we design a curriculum kind of centered around what your students' strengths, skills, and talents are. And then just the way that we educate kids. We're in a whole new realm right now with all of the digital learning, and we know we need to shift a little bit. And so we're hoping that as a part of this, that we get to these innovative practices to really increase learning for our children and for your children. And then lastly, to create a happy learning space for each student. I've been so surprised at how often I'll be explaining this concept to somebody, and somebody will say, oh, I wish that for whatever my situation was, that I had an opportunity like that. That would have been really great for me to learn in that way, because I would have been more relaxed. And some of the other bits and pieces we're building into this is just knowing about how the brain works and what ways we can help the brain be in its best state to be learning. We know that to be learning, that the brain has to be calm and regulated, that the person has to be calm and regulated. That may not always be the case in a school setting, a brick and mortar building. So if the family situation is such that that can be done at home for part of the day, we think we can make that happen for you. And then be in person for those times where it makes the most sense. So that's kind of our dreams and our hopes and our vision for this model. So what is GPFLEX exactly? Now, some of you on the line might have already been reading. You might have come to some of our informational meetings so far, our planning meetings. We've been working hard to listen, trying to be good listeners in this process. Now, we know we can't do everything that everybody wants. We have limits too, just like everybody. But we think by listening and trying to be responsive, we can do a lot more. So some of the things that we are talking about, truly, it can be virtual and this can be in person for kids. Students could be 100% online. If that works really well for your child, this could be a great opportunity for you. And so we can support that 100%. If your child would like to be partially online and partially in person, we think we can do that too. And we'll talk more a little bit about that in just a minute. If you are taking care of some things in your home school sort of approach, which we want to honor and support you in that, you might just need to have your student participate in a piece of Grants Pass Schools, and that's okay too. We are here to partner and to make it more flexible. This hasn't really been an option for families, and what we're doing now is making it an option for you. We've heard loudly from the homeschool community that choice in curriculum is a big deal. So we've been working our director team to plan and think about how can we do that for you. If there are curricula that are out there that are a better match for your family, how can we then allow that to happen, but then also make sure your student is hitting those knowledge and skills requirements along the way? And we think we can do that. There are lots of what are called formative assessments, interim assessments that are very specific to those learning standards. We all can know what those are. When your children can demonstrate that they know those things or they can do those things, that helps them be ready for the next step, and we can award credit that way. So we're very excited about that. Students can use computer adaptive lessons. Those programs have been around for a long time, actually pretty sophisticated programs that can really help address skill gaps that kids might have. And then those could be teacher created lessons. We have a ton of amazing curriculum, and our teachers are the best at creating teacher content for kids that are engaging. And then there's just opportunities to be in person. That could be anywhere from attending a class at a school, maybe a PE class, maybe a music class, could be all the way up to attending stuff that's at RCC and SOU, because we've got a strong partnership with the higher ed community. I'll give you a second to read that. So you hear me talk a lot about strengths, skills, and talents. And we believe this is really critical for not only success in life, but success in learning. And when students know what their strengths, skills, and talents are, we can do something like called play to your strengths. Like, these are the ways that you're really gifted already. Let's make sure we give you the opportunities to really enhance those. And also the areas where you're struggling a little bit, what are the ways that we can help bolster that as well? One of the ways to do that is what's called a personal education plan. And that PEP is based around the student. It's actually centered around the student. We actually pause as we enroll kids into this school to just learn about the student and get to know what those ideals are and what those hopes and dreams are and what makes that student tick. And then we build the school program around that. Now in elementary, that might not look very different by all the children because they're really learning those core basic skills. But as children progress and develop and become more particular about what their needs are and what their desires are, you'll start seeing a very customizable way of helping kids take classes and participate in things that they're very interested in. So that becomes very personal to them. So options. The teaching is done by our highly qualified teachers. Computer adaptive curriculum options are there for families that are okay with that. It might even be like, I need a part of my curriculum day in a computer adaptive, the other part in done by my teachers. We heard a lot from our Grants Pass Online families this year. One of the big draws was our teachers teaching their content and their curriculum with their amazing skills. Even though it's virtual, it's still our staff, and that's been an important part to that program this year. It could be facilitation by the parent for a family choice curriculum. So if there's a curriculum that's out there that you really like and you really enjoy the way it's set up, we can partner with you on that to help provide that for your child. And then we can make sure that they're, again, making progress towards, we say the big term is making progress towards graduation, but making progress toward the content standards in that course. And that can be done in this process. We can help facilitate in person at their local school. So this first year, which as we're building this out, we're looking at taking the virtual components, obviously that can be done at home, and then combining that with opportunities in the local school. So wherever your child's attendance area is where you're living, they could come on site for that PE class or an art class or a music class or whatever that is. And we'll partner with our schools to help facilitate that process. In the past, it's been very difficult to be what we call dually enrolled in, being enrolled in this school and this school and taking classes in either. And we are basically opening up those floodgates to allow our student information system to do that. So we are going to be able to accommodate that. And then I mentioned this earlier, connections to higher education for career preparation and early college entry. In talking with Rowe Community College and Southern Oregon University, they are really excited about this option. They have learned a lot in this pandemic as well. And so the majority of their content now is being delivered online. And there's no reason why when our kids are ready, when your kids are ready, that they could start taking those higher education courses. And they're helping us with that pathway to make that easier. Now, currently, kids at Grants Pass High School can take courses at the community and college level. And we're just going to continue with that and actually make it easier in this GPFLEX model. Because we've heard from a lot of families, my child wants to go a little more quickly than the grade level. In fact, we've had large discussions about, are there going to be grade levels in this new school concept? If it's based on skills and content and kids could go as fast as they want to, when they're mastering those content skills, they can move to the next level. That's a possibility. So we'll keep listening to you and we'll keep talking about that, but that is definitely something that we're interested in. And we've heard from families, we'd like that to be an option. So what is a PEP? So personal education plan centers around a student. It is about their strengths, skills, and talents. It's about their hopes and aspirations, not mine. It's got to be theirs. And at least annually, the PEP is reviewed to ensure that the student's program is still reflecting how they feel about their learning and where they're growing and what they'd like to be doing. Again, this is a large discussion with parents to make sure we're attending to the whole child and you know your child the best, and how can we do that together. So in thinking about, what is that PEP, I thought I'd go ahead and just give you a quick example. And again, this is a draft model and we're not sure if this is the final form, but the concepts are all there. So let me swing over to that. And so these are the components for that PEP. It's social emotional learning is what SEL stands for. Being regulated, being in relationship, and then being able to reason. Those are the new 3 R's. That is how the brain works. And so if, for example, your child learning from home helps that child to be more regulated, they have a good relationship with their family, that puts them in the best seat for learning those amazing math concepts or where things are on the globe, all that good stuff. So again, partnering with families on that. These are big concepts here that really need to be addressed, and we want to include in this personal education plan things, from my past. Who am I? What are my strengths, skills, and talents? Who helped me get to where I am today? What I want to be doing today? What are my skills for success? What's my role in helping others? And then where do I want to be going? These are, again, some of those big questions that as adults, we kind of ask these things all the time, but for kids, that may not be something that they're thinking about. So we want to help them do that. So what does that look like? Here's where we start getting creative around the child. So this is the student here. And we literally just start filling this is called a mind map, where we just start filling in their strengths, skills, and talents, things they like to do. Any of these things that are listed up here is all fair game. And what's interesting when we do this over time is to see how the child changes over time. The more they are learning, the more they're exposed to, they start making those changes that become them, and that's unique to them. We think it's really important. In fact, it's critical to the brain research that kids have positive, stable, competent, and caring adults in their lives. When life is really complex and throwing lots of curveballs, one of the most important things is to have those adults around them who can really help them process that, become resilient by adapting to those hard things and learning how to manage them. So who are those folks that are influencers? And then what are those bits and pieces that are about the child? And then from there, it can just get more complex as we figure out what those courses are that they're going to be having. But again, this idea is that this school, we want it to be centered around the child. This is really important to us. And we've heard from parents, very, very important to them as well. So that's what a PEP is. Other things that we think are important just to call out: academics, application, and socialization. So academics, again, what we're trying to do is create a situation where what's best for the student, that we do the academics in that environment. For a lot of kids, really being at home is a wonderful place for them to be learning. And we're going to partner with parents. Even if you don't know what that learning space might look like at your house, we can help you do that. And there's not a lot to it, but a few things go a long ways in creating that space for learning for the child. And then that, content's applied to the real world. I have a master's in project-based learning. It's one of the most successful ways for helping kids take concepts, even abstract concepts, applying them to real-world situations. And for them, that really grounds the knowledge and skills, and they can apply it outside of that classroom experience. So a focus on things that are, very real-world, very applicable. And then opportunities for learning in person. Again, hearing from a lot of parents, if you were on the line tonight and you gave us feedback, we were so grateful for that. That really helped shape the school design. But learning partially virtually, but then also these in-person learning opportunities. People have talked for a long time about how important it is to be around other people and learn how to socialize. That's a really important thing. We know that the pandemic has changed us, where we've basically been at home, and a lot of us have been home with our families and haven't gone anywhere else. We have seen, as our kids are coming back to in person, there's a higher rate of anxiety, and it just kind of seems foreign, like this is a new world all over again. And so these opportunities to be in person, to connect with their peer group, to participate in things like maybe sports or drama or music or performing arts of any kind, visual arts, those are really great opportunities. Even things like learning how to weld, learning to do programming with robotics, those kinds of things. Those are those in-person opportunities that are really difficult in a virtual environment. They're not impossible, but it's a little difficult to do that. Virtual class times, meeting in schools for activities, to attending current courses to offer. So just trying to offer that breadth that's out there that works best for you. So that's a lot. That's 20 minutes of me just kind of throwing all these things at you. We thought it might be helpful to start with some frequently asked questions, and then just kind of open it up to you all. What kinds of questions do you have that we could help answer tonight? So I'll pull up what we have so far for our FAQ. And I won't read all these to you, but I'll just kind of give you the sense of what these questions are and give you space to read. First question we've gotten is, how is the flexible learning experience different from other online options that are currently offered? The big difference, if you participated in GPO, Grants Pass Online, the program this year, is that GPFLEX is going to be an actual school. And so we'll have options. Right now, GPO is 100% online. That is the only option. And this GPFLEX will be certainly that if your child likes that and it works really well for that child, but also providing these other opportunities for in-person. So a wealth of teacher-created lessons, so it could be delivered virtually each day, actually. It could be using our program called Edgenuity, which does some computer adaptive, just going through the lessons and assessments to make sure the child's getting it. And then also, creating spaces for kids to come in person. So that's what the difference is. What grade levels are being served? K through 12. And then I would say that's getting a little blurry. So we're thinking about grades 13 and 14. So are there ways that when your child's ready, that they can be connected to Rogue Community College or Southern Oregon University? And again, those two entities are creating pathways to help us make this really much simpler for kids, but also for families to make that happen. Will teachers be conducting instructional lessons online as well as in person? Yes. And again, we're not exactly sure what that might look like because we're waiting to talk to you and your kids about what their needs are going to be. But for sure, a teacher could spend most of her day teaching online and then actually schedule time to do either additional things that are related to the core content or teach another class that's actually on in person altogether. In a secondary situation, we kind of think about their day kind of in sevens, so 7 different courses. And so they could be taking 5 of their courses online, and then 2 of them could be done, in person, doing culinary arts or band or something like that. Can students opt in or opt out after the start of the school year? They can, but it's a school, not a program. So actually, and I'll go through registration later on tonight, but it's an actual school. And so you're going from your regular attendance area school where you're technically enrolled to shifting to this virtual school or this flexible school. So what we would do is we'd work with you, make sure this is a good fit. And then at the term, and this is going to be a trimester school, so 3 different terms of the year. After the term, if this isn't working well, and we'll all know that well ahead of time, then we would shift at the term and change for the student. So it is an actual school. The technical term is an inter-district transfer, which is in between the buildings, intra-district, sorry. And so we'll actually be doing that. Will you still be offering the current online option or this flexible learning experience, replace it next year? So GPO, again, that's a program that we did this year to help with the pandemic, that is shifting to GPFLEX. But again, if your child needs 100% learning online, you can absolutely do that, just like GPO did this year. Now, though, you have in-person options. How can people learn more about this option? We have tonight, obviously, that's put out there. We have a bunch of information on our website. I'll show you that in just a second here. And then you're always just welcome to call us and email us, and that's fine too. How soon can students enroll? We were trying to have enrollment open today. There was a glitch with our provider, so that probably will be tomorrow. But as soon as it's live, that link will be there, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we'll be allowing people to enroll as soon as that little program gets open. So let me just take us there real quick so you can see it for yourselves. So this is our main page. You can see the big splash right now is come to our GPFLEX and learn about us. So you can go there and get all kinds of things. But if you were just going to register your student, you would go up to parents and go down to registration. And then you'll see our registration pages here. And so there's kind of a note up at the top, all right? Kindergarten, this is the kindergarten enrollment page. And these are all drop downs. So you can expand all of them, or you can do them one at a time. And what we're talking about is for GPFLEX is new students or returning students. So if you're a new student, this is the process that you would go through. And you would hit this link actually right there, and off you go. So that's for new student registration, and that's been open for a couple weeks already. And in that particular choice there, you would fill all the information out, and then you would choose GPFLEX as your school for next year. That's what you would do. If you are a returning student, you've been in Grants Pass schools already, this is the link that we're waiting for. Again, when it's hot, it'll be right there. But it's a bit of a two-step process in year one. So you will all have been sent or be sent a link that takes you right to registration. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on that link, and then you're going to update your information, make sure it's current and ready to go. And then when you're done with that, because that's going to be for your local school. So whatever your attendance area is, say it's Allendale, it's going to assume you're coming to Allendale. But if you want to come to GPFLEX next year, all you need to do is just click on this link right here. So we'll have all this information. You click on the link, and it's going to bring you to a real quick form that you will just give us. We're going to grab your email so we know how to contact you, your first name and last name, a phone number, and then how many children are you going to enroll in GPFLEX. Now I put 6 in there. I can put more if somebody needs more. And what this does is that it takes you to that field just to give us the names of your kids, the grade level that they're in, so that we can go ahead and start doing that transfer process for you. Okay, so it's a real quick form, very easy to do. And then you can see everything there that's there on that page. If I go back to the main page, if you want to know more about GPFLEX, I think a lot of you probably were already seeing this, but we're trying to keep this information that's up here. Okay, so you've got that. And if I go back to the main page, here's where you get a lot more information about GPFLEX. Here's that overview. What does it mean to be flexible? What's the learning all about? And what are those experiences? We put them all there for you. Plus all the contact information is there as well. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So what I'm going to do now is kind of open it up here to my colleagues if there are questions that are out there, if they want to add anything in.
So Todd, there was a question about how this option differs from the hybrid model that we have right now. So currently in a hybrid model, if you're at elementary, you have your classroom teacher, and that teacher is your teacher at school for your at school days, but also your teacher for your live lessons or your Canvas lessons. It's the same teacher. This would not be that. GPFLEX is its own program. So it's teachers that are choosing to be just with GPFLEX. And so, so there wouldn't be a day in person in a building and then a day at home. I'm hoping that answers the question. If not, shoot another one out there.
And there was another question in the Q&A about who do we contact if we want to get our student set up on their PEP. Right now, we're in the process of hiring staff. Your first step as parents would be to register your student for GPFLEX, and then that will then staff will know who's attending and will reach out to you and get that process started for actually selecting what will your PEP look like next year.
And then there was a follow-up question about what if we register for GPFLEX, then we have the PEP meeting and then we decide it's not the right fit. How does that work? Would you be able to still decide to go back to your attendance area school?
I'm going to take that one too. I think Todd mentioned it earlier, and I noticed another in the chat. There was kind of a similar question. Definitely at natural breaks, there will be opportunities to transfer back to your home school. So in theory, if you register now and say May, June, August, you get that PEP meeting and develop your kids' plan. And then after you get some more information, you're still like, oh, you know what, we're going to start, we do want to start at North Middle School or at Grants Pass High School. Then we would still have time to get you registered for classes at those schools. But transferring, so say it's September 20th and you're like, oh, GPFLEX is not for me. That's going to be a really difficult thing to transition you back in the middle of a term. It'll impact grades, it'll impact content. And so we're really going to look at those natural transition periods to change enrollment status. Todd, do you think that covered that?
Yeah, I think so. You know, for those that are returning, the reason it's kind of a two-step process for us is that we want to make sure your demographic information is up to date. So when you get that link from us, if you're returning, Elaine, you would go ahead and make sure that's all up to date and then submit that, and then still go to register your son for GPFLEX, and then we'll make that transfer. But that means your information's all up to date. That's the important part on the front end. And then as we're working with you, if that's not a good thing, again, like Trish said, that middle of the term isn't a good time to shift back. So we would work really hard to get through that term and then transition back to whatever is a better fit for your child. So we want to be really thoughtful about that if we can do that. Yeah, that's great. Good question.
There's a question about, can you give an example for a first grader, please? And would you be able to do part day at school and part day at home? Possibly. So remember, we're creating this right now. We're trying to get input, or we are getting input from families and interested parties. So there are certainly things that elementary age students would be able to participate in if they were GPFLEX. This would not be a first grader, but if you're a fifth grader and you want to be in band or strings, that would be an automatic thing that we would make work. A first grader, it's possible, but we want to talk that through. Anything that would be done at the brick and mortar school has to fit on that brick and mortar school's schedule. So it has to be, you know, if that teacher does their reading lesson and reading is what you want to participate in, and they do it from, you know, 8 to 10 every day, then that's when that child, you know, your child would have to be there for that time every day. And then to coordinate that with what's happening in GPFLEX, if you're choosing to have live instruction through GPFLEX, you know, I'm just not sure that we could accommodate all of those requests. And again, not saying no, but just saying, I hope so, maybe, we'll work it out. And what we can offer this first year might be different than what we can offer in years to come too. Remember, this is the first year for us with this kind of flexible model. So we need, you know, we'll learn a lot and we'll get better at it over time.
Todd, there's been a couple of questions related to coordinating IEPs, attending to students who have some academic needs that need to be met. How will the GPFLEX address and accommodate students who have academic challenges, or maybe they're a student who was disengaged throughout the pandemic? What are some of our plans around that?
Yeah, and so these are great questions. So again, starting with that personal education plan, learning about the student and figuring out what they're struggling with is actually just as important as where they're excited to go. And so that disengagement piece, particularly prolonged over time, we're very concerned about that. So we want to build this around the student to engage the student in their interests and try to put that into their education plan. So we think that's part of it. Counseling is another part of that. We're hoping to have somebody connected so that if there's a need for just kind of working through issues that are complex, that we can attend to that. IEPs, we've handled them in GPO this year using the case manager and making sure that we're attending to any specially designed instruction that needs to happen. And again, we'll just work that out with the family and the student and the teachers to make sure we're building that in a pathway that works the best. And so what that looks like literally will come down to what's in that IEP, if they're eligible for special services, and the ways that we want to enact that, if you will, either virtually and or in person. So we, again, that blend of the two, we think can help that kiddo get there in a good way. I think that kind of answered those.
Yeah, the other part of that is how will we support the student who is disengaged? And we will definitely, just like we have during this school year, try to do that. But in GPFLEX, parents are our primary partner.
Yep.
Because you have the student at home with you, and there's only so much we'll be able to do, as proven through this video conference format we've been in all year. So really, parents will be a partnership. And I will just say that from our perspective too, and Todd did mention it earlier, if your student is not being successful, especially like if you have a high school student who's not earning the credits and falling behind in their graduation path, we will definitely be intervening and offering counseling to perhaps transition to a different program that would meet the needs of the students, since the more virtual format is not proving to be a good fit for your kiddo.
And particularly, it's a great point, Trish. The closer they are to graduation, we're really going to focus on what's the best environment for that child. Yeah, if you didn't do well during comprehensive distance learning, this may not be the best option for you, and we want to be sensitive to that. Joy, your question is about, is it D7 only? Correct. And so we do have slots open for inter-district transfers. So if you're in the county area and this looks like a good option for you, you would apply for an inter-district transfer, just like you would to any school, because it's just one of our schools, but it's for our attendance area specifically. That's a great question.
And can you also address how many students will be able to register for GPFLEX? What's the maximum?
Well, yeah, we don't have a max yet, but we also, it's the tension of building something new and not quite sure how many people are actually interested in it. Now we have about 475 students who are currently in GPO this year. That's K through 12. I'd say most of them, right, Susan, are probably elementary. But we are assuming we'll have between 300 and 400 students in this school for next year. And then as it becomes more solid and we can figure out all those little bits and pieces of starting a new school, as that becomes more solid, it might become larger. We're just not sure. So we don't have a cap on it at this point. That registration link to sign up for GPFLEX is super important because that helps us know kind of what should we be planning for. And then if we reach that point where we have to juggle staffing or we need to start to hire new staff, that's when we're probably going to say, okay, we're done here and we'll pause and then just work to put people on that waiting list so they can get in if people change over time. So not that we have a cap at this point. We don't actually know how many of you are going to choose this option. And so we're going to wait to hear from you. And then as you tell us, then we'll staff it and we'll get to that capacity point and then we'll share out with you where we reach our limits. And that's kind of where we're going with right now. I wish I had a more concrete answer, but we haven't done this yet. So this is our first time through it.
There was a question asking if there's any other online options besides GPFLEX, and no, this is going to be our online option is GPFLEX.
Yep. This one provides the maximum number, maximum ability to do all kinds of online programs and still stay connected if you wanted to do in-person things or get connected to higher ed. So this one is sort of the all-encompassing, and it's designed to be from 100% online to a pretty good mix, or even being partially enrolled.
Graduation question about requirements for graduation. They will be the same as they are at the high school. That's a state law, the 24 credits that are required and part of our board policy. So it'll be the exact same graduation requirements, essential skills, personalized learning, all those parts and pieces. How will that compare with and you know, we're still in talks about what next year is going to look like for us on our schedules and stuff. But like this year, we're planning in a trimester model for high school. It'll be about the number of classes you take, and you will earn a half a credit for each of those classes within the trimester. So less classes, but more the time to get them done. And then you'll end up with, what did we figure, Todd? Like an extra half a credit beyond what you would have if you would have been at Grants Pass High School.
Yep,
So
a little bit extra.
yeah. Also on high school, asking about, will GPFLEX connect over to Gladiola in 9th grade? Our Alt Ed program is based on student need, and we haven't necessarily answered this question fully, but GPFLEX will, I mean, students can be referred to Gladiola for Alt Ed, but we have a capacity number at Gladiola as well, and so may not be able to accommodate connecting them over to Gladiola.
Alicia, your question about, I have a 6th grader who'll be 7th grader. Are they limited to the options at middle school? In a sense, yes. In another sense, depending on your child's skill sets and abilities, there's an option for moving through a higher level of curriculum. And so what we would do is meet with you and your student and kind of go through that together, what your student's ready for, and making sure that we're putting him into the appropriate classes and those electives that might be existing there. So essentially, yes, that's a great way to think about it. The middle school electives that currently exist would be an option for your student. And then we'd look at what some of those other virtual options might be, keeping in mind that the GPFLEX teachers might be providing other in-person opportunities as needed for their classes. Transportation at this point, so we've got this a virtual school predominantly. And then if your child is wanting to participate in things during the day, that would be coordinating with you to get them to that spot throughout the day. We have heard where we've had some folks that are just coming for a class or two at times, that sometimes bell schedules change and those kinds of things. So we're working to make sure that dual enrollment piece that I talked about earlier is so important, so that if there is a schedule change, you're notified, the kids are notified of that kind of thing. But at this time, the parents, you and us would be partnering to get your children there for those during the day kinds of things. David, your question about when to register. We register all year round actually for school. So there is no real deadline here. The sooner you can let us know, that helps us with our planning. That's very helpful to us. But you literally could wait, and we have families that wait until very late, which we don't recommend, but you can wait into August to register to make your decision. That's okay. But again, the earlier you can let us know when you're ready to do this, the better we can be prepared for serving your child. Question about charter schools that have faith-based curriculum. If your family would like to choose a curriculum that is a faith-based, as a public school, we can't endorse that, so we're not allowed to, but we can allow your student to work in that curriculum with you. And then what we would do are doing those performance assessments along the way to make sure your student is progressing normally. So if it's a math class, depending on the math course, we want to make sure they're doing those formative checks along the way, so they're getting that content and skills that we're hoping for. Same thing for any of the courses. So we're working that piece out. to make sure that your students getting awarded the credit or the grade based on proficiency, their ability to demonstrate knowledge and skills of that content area. And that allows us to be very flexible. So if there's a curriculum out there that doesn't match the one that's currently in public schools, we can allow you to do that because we're looking at your kids' ability to demonstrate that knowledge and skill. So that makes that pretty cool.
The part of that question, that same person's question, was about allotments. At this time, we're not planning on that. We will, if there's a curriculum need, like a subscription to something, then we would be taking care of that. If there's a need for a Chromebook, we would be taking care of that. Those sorts of things, but it wouldn't be like, you know, just a certain amount of money, that sort of thing.
I've heard some charter schools will have, like, you get charter school credits to, you know, pick and choose kind of a thing. What we're doing is, if that's something you need, we're going to try to just provide it for you. Jennifer, your question on input, you have a lot of input. And so if you're, say, a homeschool parent and you've been enjoying choosing that curriculum, we will have that dialogue with you about what works best. And then again, if it's something that we can't endorse or even provide for you, but you want to use it anyway, we can still make sure that your child is attending to those knowledge and skills bits and pieces so that we know that they're on track, and you do too, which is pretty important. Anonymous attending half-day in-person learning for middle high school, would that be accomplished? Yep, we can do that. So this is very flexible.
So
Trish
knows Edgenuity and I know Pearson, but neither one of us knows them both. I will tell you that Pearson is the product that we used for elementary, kindergarten through 5th grade for GPO this year. It is very likely not a program we will be subscribing with or partnering with next year, as it was not the program that we had a lot of success with. It's been successful this year because of the talents and skills of our teachers who have done a remarkable job making it work. But in and of itself, it's probably not the program that we will be providing for elementary.
Edgenuity will be the product we stick with for middle school and high school. For middle school, it really only offers the 4 core, so science, social studies, math, and language arts. The thing that we've appreciated about it is the ability for the student to kind of self-pace. Our teachers have been great at making sure students are keeping up on the work. The product really delivers the bulk of the instruction and assignments, assessments, etc. At the high school level, there's a lot more options. It does not have the same, we are a little bit more limited on course options in Edgenuity at the high school level. What Grants Pass High School is able to offer is much more robust than what the Edgenuity product. And that's why I think the GPFLEX model, being able to take what you need online and attend in person, could be a really positive thing for a number of students.
And I don't know what all programs will be offering for elementary. Most likely the programs for families who want to have a D7 teacher be the teacher and do live lessons like we currently do in GP Live, similar to what's happening in CDL for you know, students who are still in that program, that it will be the current programs that we're using. So Journeys is our language arts program, Step Up to Writing is our writing program, you know, that sort of thing. So it'll be the same curriculum that all of our brick and mortars use as well. But we have just begun to scratch the surface of vetting other options that families would have to choose from. So that's a question to be answered in the future.
All right, I'm going to wait for just another minute if there's any other questions that are out there. These are great questions. We will keep adding these to our FAQ and keeping them posted out there. These are wonderful. And then again, if you have other questions, you're welcome to contact us and then go through that registration process, and that's just great.
So there was a question in the chat that I think didn't get into the to the other section about for elementary, what in-person options could be provided, for example, for a 3rd grader. So again, things that that are easy for me to say yes will be provided are, if, for example, if you're a 5th grader and your child wants to participate in band or strings, it might be feasible to make it real easy to participate in our band and music programs, to attend those classes as they're scheduled at the brick and mortar schools. Certainly accessing the school for things like the library, you know, and opportunities like that. And then after that, for things that are more very, you know, like science, social studies, language arts, math, that's where we're going to have to nuance things and see if we're going to be able to make that work with the brick and mortar schedules, with the GPFLEX schedules, and obviously with the family schedules. So that's a more gray answer for me.
But we'll get more black and white as we learn how to do this with you. So that's pretty cool. I'm seeing Cambry's question there. If you were homeschooled this year, so basically if you're not enrolled in school right now, we're not rolling you forward because you're not enrolled. So right now you would become a new student to us. I believe that's correct.
Yes.
You have, your data is in our system from previous, but we're not rolling it forward. So you would select the I'm a new one, and then you would fill that out, and it would update the registration pages for us. Great questions, folks. You guys are awesome. Susan, do you want to answer this new one from Jennifer, the student-teacher ratio?
Yeah, again, we're not exactly sure. Because it's going to be a mix. Well, what we're thinking and what we're hearing from families who have expressed interest is that it's going to be a mix of families who want it to look more like current GPO, where it's, you know, scheduled live lessons and the teacher is the one pacing and directing the lessons. And then families who want to be the teacher and facilitate that curriculum on their own, and just have somebody possibly checking in with them. So obviously, if for a teacher's caseload, if they're the one doing all of the instruction, the assessment, doing that pacing, then it's going to be a lower caseload than if have some of, you know, half your caseload is people that you're checking in on maybe on a weekly basis or something like that, because the teacher is doing, or the parent is doing more of the actual instruction and pacing. So again, it's one of those things that we have to nuance and kind of figure out. We also, obviously we have agreements with our teachers and contracts. And so those are also things that as we dive into something brand new, they're not addressed in our current agreements. And so we'll be having conversations with teachers and the associations on what's reasonable for that. We do have some good experience with GPO this year and what is reasonable, what are areas that where they need, you know, maybe more time to help or assistance or anything like that. So again, I feel like Trish gives all the solid answers, and the elementary answers are like, oh, we're going to work it out. But I promise you we will. We're going to work on being very flexible and respond to needs and work it out. But for elementary, it really is such a new concept for us that it's a work in progress.
The question about high schoolers, and Trish, you might want to add to this too, but you know, it just depends on how many kids we have signed up. And so we'll kind of play that by ear, but it's entirely possible to have that live online lesson. But again, it depends on the numbers of kids. Do you want to have any other thoughts around that, Trish?
Yeah, it becomes a lot more complicated at the high school level because of teacher certifications that are required in order for students to earn specific credit, and then the number of courses an individual teacher might be teaching. So it can be complicated. It will depend on the grade level and the number of students that actually register for GPFLEX.
So we'll work that out. Yeah.
I'm going to take this next one because I know the answer.
Go.
Will there be a cost for the curriculum? No, there will not be a cost for the curriculum. The only cost that might come up would be a typical cost if your child chose to, you know, be in an elective class at the high school where there is a fee for anybody participating in that class, then, you know, there would be that fee, but generally, no, there's no cost. And then there was a question in the chat about families that are, if I'm reading the question right, really still wanting brick and mortar, but only after their children have the opportunity to be vaccinated. And so not knowing the timeline of that, how should they proceed? You know, for example, if they couldn't get vaccinated until November, if you're not wanting to be in brick and mortar until that time, then I would suggest you pursue GPFLEX, and we'll work with you on that. Again, just knowing that it's based on trimesters. So trimesters would be the time, you know, that to make that transition back to brick and mortar after your child's vaccinated and you feel comfortable that that's what you want to do. 2 for 2, Todd, for me.
Nicely done. Nicely done. I'll wait for just another minute to see if any, oh, there's another question. Great.
Yes,
We're with you, Jennifer.
well, we know the difficulties that Pearson has presented.
The time frame on that is really for the elementary folks to decide what those portions are going to be. So we'll know more here probably later this spring as we look at the different options that are out there. But I don't know that we have a solid answer on that right now.
But Jennifer, if you're looking for for a similar program to GPO where the teacher is the one who's directing the instruction, then the answer to that is that it will be the curriculum that we currently have in our brick and mortars. So, you know, Journeys, Step Up to Writing, those programs that all of our K-5 students have. What we still need to vet and work on is a list of programs that parents might want to choose that you are, you know, you're the main instructor and you're doing the pacing. So, but if you're looking for a replica of what the model GPO currently is for elementary, then it would be the same curriculums that are in our brick and mortars.
Elaine, your question about coordinating siblings into different buildings is probably, that's not what we're going to be working on because everyone's going to be different and individual. And so we don't know what class, what in-person activity each one's going to do. And so they're probably just going to be whatever that schedule is. So I'm going to say probably we're not going to be able to coordinate that. If it happens, and we will try to do that, but those two different buildings run very different schedules and programs. And so coordinating for the same day, particularly, for example, if middle school, they're meeting every day, that wouldn't match up with that schedule together. So that we'll have to talk you through that, but that's probably what it's going to be like.
Right. For most core subject areas, reading, writing, math, science, social studies, those are every day. Yep. So that's just at the time that they're offered and they're every day. If you're looking for elementary, possibly you want to just participate in the music class. Well, then it depends, you know, those are two and 3 days a week in a normal school year, not in a COVID year. And, you know, it's just whenever they're offered, that's when they're offered, which wouldn't match necessarily with a middle schooler who's doing something every day.
It's a great question. It's definitely stuff we have to kind of process together with our families. So thanks for asking it. I'll just kind of do the last couple of slides here, and if there's any other questions that come in, we'll try to answer those. But we now know that we believe tomorrow morning we'll have registration open. Sorry for our technical glitch with our provider. I kind of walked you through these things already as we're getting into this registration season. Again, we are just going to, that form that I showed you, this one here, to sign up for GPFLEX is kind of important because it tells us who's interested and what that list is going to be like as we work to figure out how many families are jumping in and that we can support that. So we are keeping track of all that, and we'll communicate as quickly as we can as things are changing so that you are all aware. If you've signed up for GPFLEX, we want to let you know when we know what's happening. keeping in mind that a lot of families change over the summertime. So this is early registration for next year. We know that. We know that folks will change over the summer, and that's okay. We're happy to support that. And so the ability to support the numbers of kids might change over the summertime if people shift out. So just be aware of that. Sometimes it just opens up seats for people who didn't know they could get in. New student registration, I did this already, just to recap it real quick. So you're going to follow the instructions to register. So you're going to click on that link that was on that registration page. If you're a returning student, that means you're not enrolled right now. So you're not in our system for being active. That means you are active. You are in classes right now. You're a returning student. So you're going to get your local attendance area where you're currently going to school, even if you're GPO. So if you're a GPO kid, but you normally would have attended Allendale, you're going to get your registration. It's going to say Allendale on it. That's your attendance area. You're going to fill out that. This is really important that you get everything up to date there so that we've got it all current. And then you're going to click on that link that we provided to register for GPFLEX. And then we'll make that transfer happen for you. Okay. I think you all know how to get to our website. That's the one that I went to earlier. I don't see any other questions in the Q&A. We're just about at time. So I just want to say thank you for coming tonight. We did record this, so we'll post this tomorrow on the website so other people can see it as well. We will keep all these Q&As up to date on our website. So as you have other questions, please send them to us. Thanks for coming tonight. We're excited about this new adventure and partnering with you in a different way. Thanks, Trish and Susan and Kristen for being here and helping facilitate all this. We are just super grateful. And you guys all have a great evening.